Welcome race fans to this week's Graham Brown interview, and today we're going to be talking to the double Superstocks world champion Jason Cooper. Welcome along, Jason.
All right, Graham, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank
Good,
you. And your
good.
good self?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Jolly good. So, coming into the Formula as a well-known Superstocks driver, did you think you were going to get a hard time from the hot rodders? Did you think they would accept you, or how did you feel about it?
I know it's been difficult for other people that have crossed over, particularly from contact formulas to non-contact, and I think that was probably evident with the steward and such like that went on probably for the first year and a half. I thought I was watched a bit too much, and every move you made, whether it was right or wrong, there was action taken. But we don't want to get into that here, obviously. But no, for the last this part of this season here, going into this season, it's been very good. End of last year, absolute disaster with crashes, and took the new car out and kept smashing it up every time. I think we kept Hardy in business the start of the year. Mm-hmm. But since the new campaign started, it's been strength to strength and going on from there, really.
Yeah, did you really did think that they were coming down harder on you from a stewarding standpoint, did you?
I think I wouldn't like to point fingers, but I think there could be I think there was a good chance that you was being watched more because you had come out of contact form, and you thought that you are going to barge your way to the front and move everyone out of the way, and that's the way you're going to drive. But I think, if anything, when I sat in the car, I was probably trying to be more careful than anyone else out there, because I knew I potentially was being watched, and you're trying to walk on eggshells as such, and I think others who have crossed over, the likes of Polly. He said recently, and I know Sean Brooker said in the past when he had to go, he said to me that all these people that have tried Superstocks, come from Superstocks to Nationals, have all said you watched a bit. But I've got past that stage now. I'm happy that that's not going on now, and I think the stewarding's fair, and I think we need more black crosses, more black flags to just stamp on it a little bit harder sometimes. I think a lot gets missed, but. To be honest with you, it's difficult. I know that. You stand in an 8x4 glass window trying to watch, 400 metres of track, and that is difficult. I know that.
Well, of course, a lot of contact drivers, when they come in, do take that attitude that you took, which is really, we're going to be Mr. Clean when we come into this, so that we don't get the finger pointed at us. What was it that actually made you think it would be a good idea to go from Superstocks to hot rods, or indeed run both at the same time?
The plan wasn't to run both at the same time, to be brutally honest with you, but the first love is Superstocks, and that's where, my heart lies, to be honest. But the hot rod was really just, we all fancied a new challenge. The team had done so much to, rule Superstocks as such for a couple of years. We all have good patches, purple patches. We won the world a couple of times, and points 2 or 3 years, and European 2 times, British a couple of times. We'd done everything we could. And the hot rod was just a new challenge, really. The boys all, we all had a good chat about it, and we decided that would be a next challenge, and everyone was up for it in the team. Without them, I wouldn't have done it. If they'd have all said, no, I'm not interested, we'd have stayed in Superstocks, and we'd have, still been there now. But they all happy to do it, and they're all up for it, and they spend every hour they can on it, all spare time. They've all got families and other commitments, but they're all there, and without them, I couldn't do it,
As an established contact racer, and obviously, we don't need to have a discussion about whether you're any good at that or not, did you not think about making the jump to say, I don't know, fresh challenge could be Briscoe Formula One?
No, not really. It doesn't appeal to me, to be honest. Obviously, they're spectacular and they sound good and everything else, but I just think they're glorified tractors, really. To be honest with you, I'm sure they're very exciting to drive, and I've had the opportunity a couple of times to drive one. And I'd like to do that, to say, yeah, that's that box ticked, I've driven one, but it doesn't appeal to me, racing one. The only thing I have perhaps thought in my mind a couple of times is probably a shale F2, just to have a go on shale properly, but that wouldn't be serious, just as a giggle. But, we could always go back to supers in a few years' time, I don't know. I think the way hot rods are, the budget is quite good at the moment, it's sensible, it's not silly money, it's good. You need a decent living to pay for it, but I wouldn't say it's extortionate, and all the different rules, the tyres and etc. have helped, one type of meeting, etc. So really, hot rods at the moment, I think, place to be.
Tell us something about your first car, because you had quite an interesting car to start with, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to, the story goes, I went to South Africa actually. I've been on 2 or 3 tours out there in the hot rods out there, and I met the Murrays of Randallstown, John Andy Shane and all the rest. Got quite friendly with them, and then through that also met Davey McCall. And we left the last tour, I think the second tour, of South Africa, and we obviously knew Davey fairly well, and we was looking at potential new challenges. And Davey said, "Oh, I've got this 206cc I've just revamped." I went over there. I think it was the British Championship weekend that Holtby won the British over there. We went over with the lorry, me and a friend, and picked up the car. And it's actually Davey's world-winning car. The last time he won, that's his 206. But he converted it to a new front end, new back end, and put the CC panels on. So, but I think the only thing that held that car back, to be brutally honest with you, was probably the Duratec engine. Handling-wise, it isn't. I think we were close. But I do think the power was that the engine was holding us back.
It didn't originally have that engine in, did it? It was your choice, I take it.
Yeah. I mean, it was just SRD, who we have do the Superstock engines. Mark Shellerbert, he obviously came up with the idea. We'll try this Duratec in the National. We tried, and it didn't quite, cut the mustard as such. But I think if we was to come back this year, and that has been talked about in the workshop, maybe in jest sometimes, but we have actually said that we'd be interested in putting a Vauxhall lump into it. And see, put a Vauxhall lump into the Peugeot back to how it was, and just see how good it actually is. Because I don't think it's a bad car at all, to be honest.
Yeah, it was quite obviously McCall's because of the strange wheels on there. Did you find a problem getting sourcing spares for those?
Yeah, the hubs and all the fitment are all Dallara Formula 3, and that was what he put on there, and it's all very lightweight, and the wheels are very lightweight. We did struggle for a start, but in the end we had to have them custom made for the job, and we was all right after that. So it was an issue, but once we got our heads around it, it was okay.
Yeah, I don't think the Duratec is dead as a national hot rod engine by any means, do you?
No, I think that's probably where the future lies, to be honest. If anyone's brave enough to keep going with it. Old Ray Harris has been going all right with one in. We didn't struggle on the big tracks, Ipswich, Hennesford, where we could get it up on the revs and hold it up there. But the small places, Skegness, Northampton, Birmingham, was wasting time. It was absolutely hopeless.
Do you think that's to do with like development of cam profiles and stuff?
Could be. It just didn't seem to have the low down torque. I mean, all people I talked to, if we could rev it to about 9, then I think that'd be very, very competitive. But it's just the fact that it's restricted to 8, and you need it up there to make it. I think it's the stroke or something, the longer stroke, that just makes it difficult to get it up on the cam as such.
So when you decided to stop driving that car, what made you decide to stop, and why did you switch to the Tigra B?
Well, I suppose I sat there thinking to myself, if I was ever in the lucky situation to be sitting on pole position at Ipswich Speed Weekend in the World Final, do I think this car could win me the World Final? And I sat there and said, probably not. That was the gist of the decision, really. And so we obviously went to the Tigra B, which we struggled with at the start. It was always good, but we just didn't quite get the luck. But now we're really sort of getting to grips with it now.
Yes, I vaguely remember you tearing the bottom out of it at Skegness in a rather unpleasant little accident there one time.
Yeah, we hit a curb, and I think we bent every piece of suspension on the car. The worst one was probably Northampton, the first meeting, when Phil Spinks busted an axle on turn 1 and 2, I think it was. And I went in there and just went up on the wall and ended up perched up on top of the wall, which wasn't much fun. But
yeah, I think that was the second time that day that Mark Paffy ended up underneath someone else. So
that's not unusual for Paff.
No, indeed. What are your plans for from here on in with this car? Are you going to stick with this current car that you're racing now?
Yeah, totally committed to this car and racing the hot rod and go from there. Mind you, I'm having a bit of a excursion tonight, just having a go in the Super for the European. But yeah, Nationals where it's got to be for the next sort of couple of years, see where we go from there. Really, we've got to try and have a go, and we've got to be committed to the one formula. If we tried to do 2, we did start to try to do 2, and it just didn't work. The time involved, I mean, people who actually involved in what looking after the cars will probably appreciate the amount of time it takes to finish cars off. I mean, we've had to get 3 ready for here today, and we were still in the garage last night at 11:45. And then everyone was in there this morning, and I think we loaded up at 1:55 and left at 2:30. So I mean, the hours, I'd be scared if we added up the hours, actual man hours that we put into it. It's ridiculous.
I have to tell you, history tells us that fighting a battle on 2 fronts like that, you usually don't win either of them, so it's probably the right decision.
Yeah, no, especially with the amount of money you're spending. You can't afford to not do it properly, and we've got to be committed to what we're doing.
Did you not feel that driving both things kept you sharper on the track, or did you feel it was to your detriment as an actual driver?
Well, I've learnt a few things with the hot rod that I didn't probably know with the Super in terms of setup. So I've transferred a couple of things into the Super, which might be interesting, might work, might not. A couple of things have worked. There's just silly things that we've had to learn with the hot rod, whether it be a slipper diff because we've never had that before, bigger brakes, all this sort of thing we've had to learn.
You said you were having to prepare 3 cars, not 2 cars. The third car is for?
Little sister, Sarah. She races super stocks as well. She actually did talk about coming out in the Peugeot.
Oh yes.
So that might well be afoot if we could get it back together. Just again, it's time of just getting it back together, really. But we could be in the pipeline.
So we could have 2 lady races in National Hot Rods then?
It's possible.
How do you feel about that? Would you race any differently if you end up in a wheel-to-wheel dice with Sam Holland, say?
No, not at all. She's as fair as anyone else, or as fair as they can be when you're around this tight on these tight ovals. But no, Sam's fair enough. I think if you gave her hassle, she'd give you hassle, and vice versa. I think that's the same with anyone. You can race fairly with all sorts of people, and you know the ones that are a bit dodgy, and you know the ones that are, shall we say, use a bit too much of the track, and you just drive accordingly when you catch them up. And if frustration sets in, you just make sure that you don't do something you shouldn't.
Now, obviously, switching tack completely, you're currently riding very high indeed in the National Hot Rod points. Your plans to stay in the top group for come next July?
Well, yeah, it's got to be. You've got to aim to do that. Obviously, it's no good saying, "Oh, we're just trying to get in the top 20." No, we're there. We've got to try and stay there. And as all the boys who have won in the past, the points have all said, you just got to keep finishing. And even though the car's good enough to hopefully get to the front, you just got to sometimes, just settle down. And if you're laying 6th place going into the last lap, sometimes you have got to sit there. But not always the case. Depends how you feel, really, how the car is. But yeah, we're positive anyway. But the good thing about it is the car's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. So some of the ones that have probably been doing it a few years that can't get much more out of the cars, they're already there. So if we can match them on lap times, and we can find even more with the bits and pieces that we've got up our sleeves, extra to come, then hopefully we can get a 2/10 faster.
And then you could be looking for yet another Gold Roof. Jason Cooper, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Graham.